Every day, a quiet war wages, not on battlefields, but in whispers, group chats, and cold shoulders. It's the kind of war that doesn't make headlines, but wrecks lives. It's a war fought through assumptions, judgments, and words spoken without love. And those who stand in truth often find themselves under the heaviest fire. The age we live in has made gossip a currency and slander a strategy. The court of public opinion replaces fact with feeling, and silence is interpreted as guilt. The damage doesn't require proof, just repetition. People will lie, twist, and exaggerate, not because of who you are, but because of what you represent. And in the midst of this chaos, one verse whispers through time, steady and clear. The servant is not greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you. These aren't just Christ's words, they are a spiritual law. A reminder that truth doesn't always bring peace, and purpose doesn't always bring applause. Christ didn't sugarcoat the walk. He didn't promise admiration or comfort. He promised truth. He promised trials. He promised that to walk in light is to become a target for those comfortable in darkness. We often forget that the same Christ who healed, loved, and forgave was still hated, slandered, and killed. He was misunderstood not because he was wrong, but because he was right in a world that had normalized wrong. So why do we expect applause when we walk the same path? If the perfect one was betrayed, what makes us think we're immune? That scripture isn't just a heads up, it's a foundation. It's the reality check every believer needs when their integrity is questioned, their silence misread, and their name misused. What's wild is that persecution often says more about the persecutor than the persecuted. Sometimes your existence offends people not because of what you've done, but because of who you are. Your presence convicts them. Your peace bothers them. Your discipline makes them uncomfortable. You don't have to say a word. Just living righteously is enough to trigger some people. Why? Because you become a mirror. And when folks don't like what they see in themselves, they break the mirror instead of doing the inner work. That's why the servant suffers like the master, not due to guilt, but due to presence. And until we understand that, we'll keep trying to explain ourselves to people who've already made up their minds. Assumptions are dangerous because they masquerade as truth. One person says something, another repeats it, and suddenly it becomes common knowledge. Never mind the facts, never mind the source. In a world addicted to information, verification is rare. And here's the sad part. People would rather assume than investigate. Why? Because assuming is easier. It demands nothing but a nod of agreement. Investigating demands humility, patience, and the willingness to be wrong. But Christ never moved based on assumptions. He moved in truth. He saw through people's intentions and didn't let public perception dictate his purpose. And if we are to walk in his footsteps, we must do the same, even when the crowd doesn't understand. When Christ stood before Pilate, he didn't argue. He didn't explain. He didn't defend. He stayed silent. Not because he lacked power, but because he understood his purpose. He knew the truth didn't need theatrics. And that's a lesson for us. When lies spread, when slander circulates, when people believe falsehoods about you, silence can be a spiritual strategy. Not every attack deserves a response. Not every rumor requires a rebuttal. Sometimes your peace is louder than your proof. God sees, heaven hears. And in due time, the truth will echo louder than every lie. Let's be real. Justice is rare in this world. People get accused, dragged, and forgotten before facts ever surface. Apologies are whispered, corrections are ignored, and reputations are left scarred while liars continue unchecked. But justice isn't absent. It's divine. It's higher than courts and quicker than social media. God has a way of bringing things full circle, of exposing what was hidden, of vindicating without warning. So don't chase revenge, chase righteousness. Let your actions remain pure, while the Most High handles what you can't. People feel safe in crowds, there's comfort in numbers, even if the numbers are wrong. Pride convinces folks that if the majority agrees, it must be truth. But history proves otherwise. The same crowd that laid down palm branches for Jesus turned around and screamed, "Crucify him!" Crowds are unstable, opinions change, loyalty wavers. If you live for their approval, you'll die from their rejection. Christ didn't trust the crowd, and neither should you. Pride loves consensus because it feeds the ego. But purpose walks alone when necessary. And when the noise gets loud, you must learn to hear God's whisper over man's cheer. In these times, spiritual discernment is survival. You need to know who's for you, who's using you, and who's watching you fall with a silent smile. Not every "I'm praying for you" is sincere. Not every silence is neutral. Some people say nothing because they want the lie to be true. Others stay quiet because your downfall validates their bitterness. Pray for eyes that see past the surface, for ears that catch the unsaid, for a spirit that stays grounded when everything around you shifts. If your purpose wasn't powerful, it wouldn't be under attack. People don't throw stones at empty trees, and the enemy doesn't fight what isn't a threat. So, when the lies come, when the betrayal hits, when your name is in mouths that don't know your heart, remember this: what you carry is valuable, and the weight of the attack is often a reflection of the weight of your assignment. Don't drop the calling just because people don't understand it. Keep building, keep healing, keep shining. They ridiculed Jesus, mocked him, stripped him, crucified him, but the grave couldn't hold him. And that's the pattern. Persecution comes before elevation. Pain comes before power. The cross comes before the crown. Let them talk, let them laugh, let them assume. Because resurrection always follows ridicule. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to stand out, to be set apart, to reflect truth even when it's inconvenient. So when they persecute you, remember who walked before you. When they lie, remember who stayed silent. When they betray, remember who forgave. The servant is not greater than the master. But just like the master, you will rise, you will shine, you will finish the mission. And every lie, every rumor, every whisper, they'll all bow to the truth. Keep walking. You're not alone. You're walking the path of the King. You were never meant to fit in. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to stand out, to be set apart, to reflect truth, even when it's inconvenient. So when they persecute you, remember who walked before you. When they lie, remember who stayed silent. When they betray, remember who forgave. The servant is not greater than the master. But just like the master, you will rise, you will shine, you will finish the mission. And every lie, every rumor, every whisper, they'll all bow to the truth. Keep walking. You're not alone. You're walking the path of the King. And walking that path means understanding that elevation rarely comes without isolation. Before God brings you into the next dimension, He allows the people around you to reveal their true hearts. It's not punishment, it's preparation. You can't take everyone with you, and not everyone deserves access to your next season. The betrayal is your confirmation. The gossip is your signal. The silence of those you thought would speak up is your clarity. Don't grieve what God is revealing. Don't mourn the people He's pruning. You're not losing. You're being refined. You're not being abandoned. You're being aligned. And alignment always requires separation. The same Christ who broke bread with Judas also let him walk out into the night. He didn't beg him to stay. He didn't chase him down. He simply said, "What you're about to do, do quickly." That's the posture of a person rooted in purpose. No desperation, no panic, just resolve. When you've been slandered, betrayed, and left for dead emotionally, spiritually, or even socially, it's easy to feel like something is wrong with you. But the truth is, persecution is often proof of promotion. The enemy doesn't attack what isn't a threat. Your pain is not random. Your isolation is not accidental. It's divine strategy. God is protecting your purpose from contamination. Because if everyone could access you, they would dilute what he's trying to do through you. Your silence is not weakness, it's warfare. Every time you refuse to clap back, every time you hold your peace, every time you keep walking when it would have been easier to stop and defend yourself, you're winning a war most people don't even see. You're choosing growth over gossip, destiny over distraction, purpose over pride. There's a reason you feel the weight of misunderstanding. There's a reason your name gets dragged while your heart stays clean. God is using your story to build something bigger than your ego. He's using the lies to purify your character. He's letting the people close to you reveal themselves so you'll stop giving access to those who don't have the maturity to handle it. You were called to lead, not just survive. You were called to walk in power, not popularity. The fire you're walking through right now, it's refining you. The storm isn't sent to destroy you. It's sent to expose what was never stable to begin with. Let them think what they want. Let them believe the narrative. Let them talk while you build. Because when it's all said and done, the fruit will speak louder than the rumor. The legacy will last longer than the lie. And your elevation will be undeniable. God doesn't waste pain. He doesn't allow persecution unless he plans to use it for purpose. So stop asking, why me, and start declaring, use me. Use me to show grace under pressure. Use me to show silence is strength. Use me to show that faith isn't just pretty. It's powerful. You are not being buried. You are being planted. And what looks like a setback is really the soil for your greatest season. Remember, resurrection only happens after crucifixion. Glory only comes after the grave. The stone rolled in front of your name is just setting the stage for the comeback. You are not what they said. You are what God declared. You are not defined by the ones who walked away. You are refined by the one who stayed. And he's not finished with you yet. Let them whisper, let them laugh, let them assume. You'll be too busy building, too busy healing, too busy growing. Because your story doesn't end in betrayal, it ends in brilliance. Keep walking, keep rising, keep becoming. The crown is still yours. And the world hasn't seen your final chapter yet. Because you're walking the path of the king. And when you walk that path long enough, you realize the attacks are not personal, they're prophetic. You are confirmation of what's possible, and your mere existence contradicts their excuses. Your discipline disturbs their dysfunction. Your peace is offensive to chaos. Your resilience reminds people of what they gave up on. That's why they target you. That's why they lie. That's why they project. But hear this, God didn't call you to respond. He called you to rise. He didn't call you to be reactive. He called you to be radiant. And radiant people don't chase shadows, they shine. You will not waste your oil proving your worth to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You will not explain your anointing to those who benefit from your downfall. You will not argue with those who can't discern your fruit. Your assignment is too heavy to carry extra weight, so shake the dust. Bless them anyway. Smile and keep walking. Because favor isn't always loud, but it's always evident. And the time will come when those who whispered will have to witness. Those who doubted will have to watch. Those who mocked will have to marvel. Because God prepares tables in the presence of enemies, not in the absence of them. You're not fighting for a seat, you're being prepared to own the table. So build in silence, build in pain. Build when it doesn't make sense. Build when no one believes. Because obedience is the seed and harvest is inevitable. What you build in the shadows will be revealed in the light. Stay in the process. Don't rush the promise. Every tear is watering purpose. Every delay is shaping depth. Every betrayal is God's way of removing what can't go with you. You are chosen. You are covered. You are kept. Even in the slander. even in the storm. Even when it feels like you're walking alone, you are walking the path of the King. So, rise with confidence, move with clarity, speak with conviction. And when your name is mentioned in rooms where your character is questioned, let your fruit do the talking. Let your peace speak louder than your pain. Let your posture outlast their opinions. Let your consistency crush their speculation. Because truth doesn't need defense. It just needs time. And when that time comes, the same mouths that doubted will have no choice but to admit they couldn't break what God built. You were never fragile. You were fortified. And now you're unstoppable. Walk in it. You're walking the path of the King.